Thank you. Please be seated. The court will call the Circuit Court for the County of Superior to order. I am Judge David Nicholson, and I'm giving you a short bio of me. And I graduated from Huron High School in 1959, Huron Junior College in '61, and Wayne State University in 1963. I graduated from Wayne State University Law School with a Juris Doctorate in 1966 and was admitted to practice that same year. I practiced in Detroit for a couple of years and in Macomb County for a year and a half, and then moved back to Port Huron. I was appointed to the district court as a judge in October of 1994, and I retired from the bench this past January. At this time, I would introduce you to Judge S. Keith Bankson Jr., who's seated here. He'll give you a brief statement about himself.
I'm Keith Bankson, and I'm a longtime Port Huron lawyer. I grew up in Port Huron, and I'm now a district court magistrate.
Judge John Corey.
My name is John Corey. I lived here most of my life as well. I've been an attorney for about 28 years, and I'm in private practice here for 4 years. And
Judge Timothy Cook.
My name is Tim Cook. I'm the district court administrator and a magistrate also.
All right, and this is round 3 of the St. Clair County Mock Trial Tournament. By rule, the participating schools are not to be identified in any way. The purpose of the tournament is to educate, to compete, and most of all, have fun. And at this point, I'd like to indicate to you that because I'm wearing a black robe doesn't make me any different from anybody else, and you need to be relaxed in what you do, take charge in what you do, and adhere to the rules. However, you will be required to adhere to both to all of the rules that are in the book and also the time constraints. We're trying the case of Evan Brooks, plaintiff, versus Shannon Lawrence and the City of Clearwater Police Department. This is an intentional tort case alleging personal injury and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The allegations have been denied by the defense. At this time, I would ask the attorneys for the plaintiff in this case to enter their appearances and indicate the witnesses that they will be examining.
I'm Brittany Gilbert. I'm a plaintiff attorney.
My name is Christina Bantle. I'm a plaintiff attorney. I will be directing Dr. Whitney Taylor and crossing Devin Rodriguez.
My name is Tara Forsyth. I will direct Evan Brooks and cross Shannon Lawrence.
All right, thank you. Now your witnesses can identify themselves and by your name and what witness you will be portraying.
Sam Lusk, and I'll be portraying Evan Brooks.
Heather Krestick, and I'll be portraying Dana Drago.
Caitlin Davis, and I'll be portraying Dr. Whitney Taylor.
All right. And the attorneys for the defense.
My name is Sarah Rush. I am a defense attorney, and I will be direct examining Officer Lawrence and cross-examining Dana Derecha.
My name is Bill Coop. I am a defense attorney. I'll be direct examining Alex Camp and cross-examining Dr. Whitney Taylor.
My name is Ryan Tiller. I'm a defense attorney. I'll be direct examining Devin Rodriguez and cross-examining Evan Brooks.
All right, and your witnesses.
I'm Dan Riley. I'll be portraying Devin Rodriguez.
I'm Montez Elash, and I'll be portraying Officer Shannon Lawrence.
I'm Sarah Damashki. I'll be portraying Alex Camp.
All right. One of the problems that we have from time to time, and I'm going to sound sexist when I say this, but it usually is a lady who is that has the difficulty, because most ladies' voices are a little softer than men's. And those of you who feel that maybe you have a problem being heard, talk as if you were talking to your little brother when you're in an argument. And it will project throughout the courtroom and everybody will hear you. We want to hear you. Everybody wants to hear you. So please speak up. And let's see, I would would just like to indicate that you will be held to the rules that you've all been made aware of, including the time limitations which will be strictly adhered to. Before we proceed with opening remarks, are there any matters to come before the court prior to that time?
Not at this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, for the defense.
Not at this time, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. As I have it here, the opening statement will be given by by Brittany Gilbert for plaintiff.
Yes.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon. May it please the court, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the court. I am Brittany Gilbert alongside Christina Bantle and Tierra Forsythe, and we represent Evan Brooks. We all recall the fables and fairy tales that were told to us as children. They educated us on important life lessons we now run into every day. Almost every situation in our daily lives can be traced back to a fairy tale with great lesson or moral attached to it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today is no exception. Today's case is simply a recreation of the classic Little Red Riding Hood story. First of all, instead of the tall canopies of the forest, there's a Clearwater shop hall. Here's where we find our protagonist, Little Red Riding Hood, Evan Brooks. Now replace Little Red's basket with the shop hall shopping cart, and you have just recreated the scene on the night of October 26, 2006. Now enter stage left, the Big Bad Wolf, Shannon Lawrence. Lawrence does everything that the Big Bad Wolf would do with just as much savageness. This is exactly where our burden of proof comes in. We will, by a preponderance of the evidence, prove three elements. First of all, that Lawrence caused trauma for young Brooks when he beat him in the checkout lane of shop hall by slamming him into a conveyor belt and a glass case, a little act known as battery. Secondly, Lawrence arrested Brooks without legal justification. Finally, Lawrence also intentionally caused emotional distress when he joined his colleagues of the Clearwater Police Department in mocking young Brooks at the station. Lawrence performed these acts while employed by the Clearwater Police Department as a police officer, thus leaving the Clearwater Police Department just as responsible for Lawrence's actions as himself. Because it was indeed the Clearwater Police Department that trained Lawrence and gave him the authority he abused on the night in question. However, the Clearwater Police Department did not punish Lawrence for these actions. In fact, Lawrence has had other occasions in which he acted with such impunity and only received a mere slap on the wrist for his brutality towards the population. We, the plaintiff, will prove these facts with the help of three key witnesses. First of all, you will hear from a loyal shop hall employee, Dana Durecka. Ms. Durecka has been the head cashier at shop hall for the past 5 years and is the only first-hand witness of the whole encounter between the Big Bad Wolf and Little Red Riding Hood. Not only this, but Dana will also tell you how she is being severely punished for her actions on the night of October 26 for no reason by her assistant manager, Alex Camp. Secondly, you will hear from Dr. Whitney Taylor, the school psychologist for Superior State University. Dr. Taylor will provide you with the medical background of Mr. Brooks and explain why Evan prefers to shop near closing and why he tends to shy away from large groups. She will also tell you the tremendous progress that Brooks has worked so hard for and how all that progress was instantly shattered by the Big Bad Wolf's attack. Dr. Taylor will clearly illustrate for you the trauma the attack has inflicted on Brooks and describe the injuries that Brooks had sustained that were still present 6 days after the incident at shop hall. Finally, you will hear from none other than the Big Bad Wolf himself. Little Red Riding Hood himself. Evan Brooks. Evan will in vivid detail tell you how he's innocently shopping for 1 stick of deodorant and how Lawrence stalked him through the aisleways to the cash register. Then Lawrence promptly ended Brooks's call for help and thrashed him into everything about them. Lawrence proceeded to humiliate Brooks by arresting him without legal justification and intentionally caused emotional distress by mocking poor young Evan Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, the Clearwater Police Department is responsible for your safety, and teasing and beating harmless kids such as Brooks is inexcusable. You have the right to shop in a peaceful community where you feel safe to browse around your stores. The Clearwater Police Department is infringing upon that right. It allows its officers to act without fear of being punished or forcing them to face their necessary consequences. You as jurors today have the power to put an end to this immature bullying done as Big Bad Wolf and other vicious fiends. So use that power today and play the role of the honest hunter who rescues Little Wolf and makes a Big Bad Wolf pay for his cruel deeds. Today we are asking you to rule in favor of the innocent victim and force the Clearwater Police Department to pay for the damages itself and its affiliates have caused young Evan Brooks. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. At this time, Ryan Tibble will give the opening statement for the defense.
Your Honor, we'd like to reserve our opening statement until that night of press.
All right, thank you. Plaintiff may call its first witness.
Would you like to call Evan Brooks to stand, please?
Raise your right hand, please. Swear to abide by the rules of the 72nd District Court.
I do.
Please have a seat, state your name, and spell your last name.
Thank you. Evan Brooks, B-R-O-O-K-S.
You may proceed.
Mr. Brooks, how old are you?
19,
And what high school do you attend?
Clearwater High.
And what grade are you in?
I'm a senior and I'll be graduating this June.
What do you plan to do after you graduate?
I'll be attending Newcastle University in September, and after that I want to go to a good law school.
What exactly occurred on the evening of October 26, 2006?
Well, on October 26th, I hurried to Shopall. I needed to return a scarf that I had received as a gift and pick up a few things for my early morning flight out to Florida. I was going to my sister Tia's wedding. And so I shopped for what I needed, returned the scarf, and when I got out to the checkout line, I realized that I had forgotten a stick of deodorant.
What'd you do when you realized this?
I asked the cashier if I could go back and get the deodorant, since it was an important item, and I knew it would be hard to get the following morning. I learned from the cashier that the deodorant was in aisle 1, so I hurried back.
What occurred once you were back in the aisle?
Well, as I was looking for deodorant, a man who I later learned was Mr. Lawrence approached me and told me that I had to leave the store immediately. I explained to him that I just needed this one last item and that the cashier knew I was back getting it.
How did Lawrence respond to this?
Lawrence was very rude. He said, "I don't care what the cashier said," and I also heard him mention under his breath, "I'll fix you."
What'd you do next?
Well, I grabbed the deodorant and hurried back up to the front of the store and placed the deodorant on the conveyor belt.
What did Lawrence do?
Lawrence followed me up to the front of the store and confronted me in the checkout line. He told me I couldn't pay for my things and that I needed to leave the store. When I protested, he got really up in my face and said, "If you don't leave, I'm going to have to lock you up." And that really scared me because he sounded really threatening.
How did you react to Lawrence's behavior?
Well, I was afraid, so I called 911. I spoke to the dispatcher and explained that a security guard at Shopall was threatening me and asked that they send police right away.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness that is marked as exhibit number 3?
May.
Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
That is the transcript of the 911 call I made.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of the original?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff would like to offer exhibit number 3 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
It will be admitted, it will be received in evidence.
Thanks. May I publish the exhibit to the jury?
You may.
What did Lawrence do while you're making this 911 call?
Well, as I was still talking to the dispatcher, Lawrence grabbed me, threw me up against the conveyor belt. I was scared. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before. He then picked me up and threw me up against the glass cabinet, trying to put handcuffs on me.
What occurred once the police that you called arrived?
Well, when the police first arrived, I was relieved because I thought they were here to help me. Unfortunately, they shot at me and arrested me without even hearing what I had to say.
Did you sustain any injuries?
Yes, I was bruised and I had injuries, especially around my wrist, where Officer Lawrence had handcuffed me.
What happened once you were at the police station?
Once I was at the police station, the officers continued to make fun of me because I was crying.
What happened after you left the police station?
My aunt picked me up and took me to the hospital for my various injuries.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness as that is marked in exhibit number 4?
You may.
Thank you. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
That's my emergency room intake form.
Is that all the correct information?
Yes, I do weigh 130 pounds, and that is the correct birth date and height.
Okay. Is it a fair and accurate copy of the original?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, plaintiff would like to offer exhibit number 4 in evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Admitted.
Thank you. And would also like to publish the jury with exhibit number 4.
You may.
What does this doctor's report show?
The doctor's report showed that I had a sprained wrist and muscular strain in my shoulder and my right knee. The doctor was very nice, and he couldn't believe this had happened to me.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Tibble, you may cross-examine.
Mr. Brooks, isn't it true that you went to the shop hall to return an item?
Yes,
Isn't it true that this item was a scarf?
that's true.
Isn't it?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance?
Why is it,
How
how is it irrelevant?
How is what he went to the store for relevant to what occurred later?
It explains why he was there. The objection is overruled.
Again, isn't it true that the item was a scarf?
Yes.
And isn't it true that this scarf was a gift?
From my grandma, yes.
Isn't it true that you were returning the scarf because you said it was ugly?
Yes, it was not pretty.
Isn't it true that you knew the security guard was a police officer?
He did have a gun.
Yes or no, please?
Yes.
Isn't it true that Officer Lawrence was in police uniform?
Yes.
Isn't it true that Officer Lawrence was wearing a police gun belt that had a firearm placed in it?
He was.
Isn't it true that Officer Lawrence confronted you and asked you to proceed to the checkout lane?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you just ignored Officer Lawrence?
I only needed one more thing.
Isn't it true that in your statement you stated you just ignored the officer?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you were the last person in the shop hall other than employees?
I believe so.
Is it fair to say that you were trespassing because you refused to leave the shop hall upon reasonable demand from Officer Lawrence?
Is it fair to say that?
Yes.
No.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Right.
I'd like to show the witnesses was previously marked as Exhibit 2 for identification. Do you know what that is?
Yes, this is my cell phone individual charges, cell phone bill.
It's an accurate representation.
It looks that way, yes.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yeah, there's a lack of proper foundation as to why he's entering it.
I think that there's been a proper foundation laid in terms of admitting the exhibit. I guess the question I have right now is the reason for doing so at this juncture.
I would like to prove that this shows what time he called the police.
All right, okay. The exhibit is admitted.
Your Honor, may I publish the exhibit to the jury? Can you please refer back to, can you please refer to the 911 call that you made on the 26th of October?
Yes.
At what time did you call 911?
10:06 p.m.
And isn't it true that the shop all closes at 10 o'clock?
Yes.
Isn't it true that prior to calling 911, you have been asked to leave the store?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you were frustrated when you returned to the checkout lane after being confronted by Officer Lawrence?
I was frustrated that day.
Isn't it true that you took a deal for community service and the charges brought against you?
Yes.
Yet isn't it correct that you said you did nothing wrong?
Yes, I still don't think I did anything wrong.
Isn't it true that you were in such a rush on this night because you were supposed to leave for a trip to Florida the next morning?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you couldn't go to Florida on the day you were actually supposed to leave because you were being disciplined at school?
That is correct.
Isn't it true that you were serving a suspension on the day you were supposed to leave for Florida?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Showing the character of the witness. Why he was shopping at 10 o'clock at night. And his character.
I'm not sure that it shows anything about character. The objection is sustained.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And testimony will be stricken.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Could you tell me why were you making the 911 call?
Because I was threatened by Officer Lawrence.
And what had frustrated you in the line?
That I couldn't just pay for my things and leave.
And why did you take the community service deal?
It was a suggestion from the DA that it would just be easier.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross.
No cross, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down. Thank you. Plaintiff may call next witness.
Your Honor, we would like to call Dana Dureka to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to abide by the rules of the 72nd District Court on trial.
I do.
All right, state your name, please, and spell your last name.
Dana Dureka, D-E-R-E-C-H-A.
You may proceed.
What do you currently do for a living, Ms. Dureka?
Well, for the past 6 years, I've been a cashier at Shopall, and in just 1 year, because of my hard work, I obtained the position as head cashier. I usually work the evening or afternoon shifts, but I'll work morning if they need me.
How do you feel about your job, Ms. Dureka?
Oh, I love my job, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I've actually been trying to obtain a promotion to assistant manager. Many positions have opened up, but I haven't. I've been denied.
Objection, narrative.
Well, the objection would be perhaps better if it were that it's not totally responsive to the question. Please keep your answers directly to the question that was asked.
Yes, Your Honor.
Simply to that, if you would, please. Thank you. You may proceed.
Where were you on the evening of October 26, 2006, Ms. Dureka?
I was working at Shopall. Alex Camp, the assistant manager, was also working along with Lawrence, the security guard. Some customers were in the store when it was near closing with me.
What time does Shopall close?
10 o'clock.
And do you do anything before to prevent customers from coming in?
We have to lock the doors a few minutes before closing to ensure that no more customers will come in past closing time.
You said there were several other customers in the store. Who were they?
One that I later found out was Evan Brooks, and the other was a couple.
What was Brooks doing?
Just some minor shopping. He came to my register, and then he said he forgot some deodorant and ran back to get it.
What happened while Brooks was gone?
2 customers approached me. They needed to be let out of the doors, and when I came back, Brooks was in line at the register, and Lawrence was with them.
What was happening between Lawrence and Brooks?
Lawrence was yelling at Brooks, and at first I thought maybe he'd stolen something, but then Brooks pulled out his cell phone to call the police, and...
What did Lawrence do in response to the police call?
Lawrence didn't even let him finish the call. He slammed him on the conveyor belt, trying to put handcuffs on him, and then he slammed him into a glass case.
What happened next?
Well, all the noise brought out the assistant manager, Alex Camp, and he saw what was going on and called the police.
Did Lawrence stop Alex from making his police call?
No.
Who responded to the 911 call?
Some officers came and Alex let them in.
Then what did the police do?
Lawrence told them that Brooks was trespassing and they arrested him.
After this night, what happened to you, Mr. Eka?
I received a written reprimand for my actions from our assistant manager. This will prevent me from getting the promotion that I've been hoping for, but I will still keep trying because I love working at Shop Hall.
Thank you. No more questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination will be by Sarah Rush.
And just for future reference, it's Roosh.
Sorry?
Mispronounced my last name.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
What is the proper?
Roosh.
Roosh? Okay, I'm sorry. I will make that correction. Thank you.
Sorry. Shop Hall has particular closing policies, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm showing you it has been previously marked as Exhibit 6 for identification. Could you please tell me what it is?
It's an excerpt from the Shop Hall Cashier Handbook, 2005-2006.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of Exhibit number 6. Its authenticity has been stipulated by both parties.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, I'm looking over. Wrong place for objection. It will be admitted.
Could you please read for me under the store closing policies, Article 7, Sections 5 and 6?
You must ring up all customers by closing time. You may not allow customers to return to the aisle after the store is closed.
Isn't it true that, in a sense, you let Mr. Brooks go back into the aisles?
I did. It was not before the store was closed.
But isn't it true that in your statement, you stated that you believed he didn't have enough time?
Yes.
And isn't it true that as Brooks was getting the deodorant, you zoned out?
Yes.
So it is also true that you don't know exactly how long he was gone?
No, I do not know exactly how long he was gone.
You've worked at Shop Hall as a cashier for 6 years, correct?
Yes.
And after the first year, you were promoted to head cashier?
Yep.
And you would also like to be promoted to assistant manager?
Yes.
And over the past 2 years, the position has opened up several times?
Yes.
And you've applied for the position every time it's opened up, correct?
Yes.
And in your opinion, you feel you are more than qualified for this position?
Yes.
And yet, isn't it true every time the job is opened up, someone else has gotten it?
Yes.
You received a written reprimand because of this incident, correct?
Yes.
And you believe this reprimand was unfair?
Yes.
And isn't it true that you believe this reprimand will hurt your chances for getting the assistant manager position?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You direct?
Yes, sure.
Mr. Eka, how did you come out of your daydream?
2 customers came up to me and they said they needed to be let out of the doors.
When was this?
Right before the encounter with Lawrence and Brooks.
So you were successfully pulled out of the daydream before Brooks came
Yep.
in? Can you... Oh, what time did you let Evan Brooks go back into the aisle?
Before 10 o'clock.
Mr. Eka, do you have the least bit bitter feelings towards your job?
No, why would I? I love working at Shop Hall.
And are you going to continue to try out for the assistant manager position regardless of this reprimand?
Of course, I just think I need a few more years' experience.
Thank you. No more questions, Your Honor.
Recross?
No, Your Honor.
You may step down, thank you. Defense may call its next witness, or I'm sorry, the plaintiff may call the next witness.
We would like to call Dr. Whitney Taylor to the stand, please.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to abide by all the rules of the 72nd District mock court trial.
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat.
Please have a seat, state your name and spell your last name.
Dr. Whitney Taylor, Taylor.
You may proceed.
What is your profession, Dr. Taylor?
I'm a psychologist.
Where did you attend college?
I attended Superior City University.
Where do you practice?
I work with the Superior State University Counseling and Psychology Services, and I also have my own practice.
What age group do you work with the most?
Teenagers and young adults.
And why do you like working with that particular age group?
Because I believe that if I can help them now, I can help them succeed later in life.
What is your relationship with the plaintiff, Evan Brooks?
I began seeing him as a patient September 13th, 2006.
And on your first visit, what was your impression of Evan Brooks?
That he was a very bright and driven young man, and it really surprised me because he has such a hard time being around people he doesn't know.
Why did he need to see a psychologist?
Because he didn't really have any friends because he gets picked on for being smart, and he just needed someone to talk to.
Was Evan Brooks taking any medication at the beginning of your sessions?
No.
Do you feel that he needed medication?
No, as I said before, all he needed was someone to talk to.
As Brooks' psychologist, what kinds of conclusions did you draw about his personality?
He was very delightful and very driven.
How long after the incident at Shopall on October 26, 2006, did you first see Evan?
November 1st, about 5 days after the incident.
And how did his mood and personality seem on that first visit?
Significantly unhappy.
And how do you know this?
He looked really tired, and he couldn't even talk about the incident without being reduced to tears.
What did you learn about the Shopall incident from Brooks?
That he had been assaulted by an off-duty police officer, Lawrence, and who just threw him around like a rag doll.
Did you see any physical evidence of these claims?
His wrists were severely bruised.
What kind of problems did Brooks suffer in relation to this horrendous incident?
He felt humiliated, he couldn't sleep, he couldn't concentrate, and he was tired all the time.
You said previously that you were just being a friend to Evan Brooks and talking to him. After the incident at Shopall, what kind of things did you focus on during your sessions?
Mainly the stress related to the assault and the other police officers of the department.
How long was Brooks unhappy and unable to sleep after the assault?
I could only let it go on for a couple of weeks with no more improvement, and before I had to encourage him to see his regular physician.
Did Brooks' doctor prescribe any medication?
Yes, Zoloft, antidepressant and sleep medication.
In your professional opinion, doctor, will this be easy for Brooks to get over?
No, not at all. He's terrified of police officers and security guards, and I really believe that this is going to be a long and hard journey for him to get over with.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Coop, you may cross-examine.
Dr. Taylor, do you see Evan Brooks every week?
Yes, I do.
And you've been doing so since September 13th, 2006, correct?
Yes.
And Brooks was referred to you by the high school guidance counselor, correct?
Yes.
And is it true that Brooks has a hard time adjusting to certain situations?
Yes, I believe it was because of his background.
And is it true that Brooks has had trouble making friends?
Yes.
And isn't it true that when Brooks receives negative feedback, he responds with anger and hostility?
I recall one time over...
Wait, isn't it true that Brooks has had a history of yelling and saying abusive words to higher authority figures?
Yes, one incident.
Isn't it true that Brooks responds to a low grade with yelling and saying abusive words to a teacher?
Over a grade he felt was very unjustified.
Yes or no, please?
Yes.
And isn't it true that because of this, she had to serve an in-school suspension?
Yes.
Lastly, is it true that you are paid through Brooks' insurance policy?
Yes.
Are you here today just because you don't want to lose a paycheck?
No, not at all.
On irrelevance?
Could go to the credibility of the witness. The objection's overruled. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Yes, please. In your professional opinion, doctor, is talking back to adults normal behavior for a teenager?
Yes, it happens quite often.
And how many times has Brooks responded in this hostile manner towards adult figures?
One time.
One time. And do you care about the mental stability and psychological aptitude of your patients?
It's one of the most important things to me.
So your paycheck is not of the most importance?
Objection, leading question.
I was no way implying the answer, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
I was in no way implying the answer, Your Honor.
Well, it seems to me that you were giving the answer. The answer would have been yes.
Okay.
Objection is sustained. Please refrain from leading the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. What is of the most importance to you?
My patients and their mental stability.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Coop.
No, we direct.
All right, you may step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, plaintiff rests, I assume.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Tittle, you may proceed with your opening remarks.
Your Honor, may I use the podium closest to the jury?
You may.
Your Honor, gentlemen of the jury, you've been asked to be here today to make a decision of right or wrong. My name is Ryan Tittle. My colleagues, Sarah Roosh, Bill Coop, and I represent the defendants, Officer Shannon Lawrence and the Clearwater Police Department. The plaintiff, Evan Brooks, is claiming that Officer Lawrence brutally attacked him and the Clearwater Police Department falsely arrested him. That just isn't the case. Officer Lawrence was just trying to do his job so that, like every one of us in this room, he could support his family. On the night of October 26, 2006, began as a regular day for Shannon Lawrence, began to turn into a night he wished he had never be a part of. He went to work at the local shop hall after working overtime at his day job, a police officer for the Clearwater Police Department. Being a security guard for the local shop hall was a second source of income for Officer Lawrence and his family. Just before closing, around 10 in the evening, at the local shop hall, Officer Lawrence was making his nightly sweep of the aisles to make sure that everybody was either in the checkout or had left the store, since that was closing policy of the shop hall. He had almost completed his sweep when a 19-year-old teenager, Mr. Brooks, was in aisle 1 shopping. According to the store's policy and the directions of the assistant manager, everyone had to be out of the aisles and in the checkout lane or to leave the store by closing time, which Evan Brooks was not. Officer Lawrence then clearly made sure that Brooks knew he had to be in the checkout lane, and to Officer Lawrence's surprise, he ignored him and continued to shop. Finally, Miss Brooks did go to the checkout lane, and after closing time, Officer Lawrence proceeded to the register to see if Mr. Brooks had at last left the store. To his shock, he had not left. Again, following store procedure, he approached Evan Brooks and asked him to leave the store. Suddenly, he blew up in Officer Lawrence's face, verbally abusing him. Officer Lawrence now knew that something had to be done to restrain this delinquent teenager. He attempted to put handcuffs on Brooks, but he resisted and forced the two of them into a glass case that caused injuries to the both of them. After this, Officer Lawrence was able to restrain Evan Brooks, and the Clearwater Police Department shortly arrived at the shop hall and rightfully arrested Mr. Brooks for trespassing and disorderly conduct. As this case proceeds and develops, we will question witnesses and introduce evidence that will prove that the plaintiff has not, beyond the burden of proof, proven that the defendants, Officer Shannon Lawrence and the Clearwater Police Department, are at fault in this irrational case. First, you'll hear from Officer Shannon Lawrence himself. We'll tell you that he was just following directions set forth by the assistant manager and following all police protocol. Next, you'll hear from Miss Alex Camp, the assistant manager of the local shop hall. She, Miss Camp, personally hired Officer Lawrence for his diligence and ability to follow all procedures. Lastly, you will hear from the Chief of Police, Devin Rodriguez, who personally selected Shannon Lawrence for his ability to follow all police procedures and his relationship with the community. In conclusion, Officer Lawrence and the Clearwater Police Department are not at fault in this case. In fact, it is Little Red Riding Hood, or Mr. Brooks, himself. He came to the store in a rush to return a scarf that he had received as a gift, and to shop for wants, really. It was his own delinquency that caused his own injuries and his own mental anguish. I ask of you to consider what Officer Lawrence went through on this eventful night. I ask of you to consider that Officer Lawrence had this second job at the shop hall to earn and provide for his family. I ask you to make a decision in favor of the Clearwater Police Department, a facility devoted to fine officers that uphold the law, and a verdict in favor of Officer Shannon Lawrence, a hard-working family man.
Okay, the defense may call its first witness.
The defense calls Officer Shannon Lawrence to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to abide by all the rules of the 72nd Mock Court District Trial.
Yes, sir.
Please have a seat.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
I am Officer Shannon Lawrence, Lawrence.
May proceed.
Could you please state your occupation for the court?
I work as a police officer for the Clearwater City Police Department.
Do you have any other jobs?
Yes, I also work part-time at the shop hall to help support my family.
What shifts do you work at your two jobs?
Well, as an officer, I work from 7 a.m. till 4 p.m. And then I work at shop hall from 7 p.m. till 11 p.m.
How long have you worked as a police officer?
I've worked in the Clearwater Department for 6 years.
And have you won any awards as a police officer?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness and...
May.
I'm showing you what has been marked as exhibit number 5 for identification.
This is my personnel record form.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of exhibit number 5. Its authenticity has been stipulated by both parties.
Any objection?
No objections.
It will be admitted.
Officer Lawrence, could you please read out loud for the court what is under awards and accommodations?
Awards and commendations. Outstanding relationship with the community. Recognition for investigative techniques. Recognition for work with the community and educational initiatives.
On a typical day, what do you do between the two shifts of your jobs?
Well, I usually go home and relax and eat dinner with my wife and 2 kids.
Let me direct your attention to the date of October 26, 2006. Did anything unusual happen at your job as a police officer?
Well, the department was short-staffed, so I tried to help them out by staying late at work.
And then what did you do?
Well, it was too late for me to go home and eat dinner, so I went straight toward my job at shop hall.
And so you didn't get to change into your security guard uniform?
No, I didn't. I had to stay in police uniform, but I decided against bringing my badge and baton.
What did you keep with you?
Well, I kept my holster and my gun belt.
And how did your shift at the shop hall go?
Well, everything went fine until around closing time, and I started doing my rounds to check to see if anyone else was in the store.
What happened?
Well, as I was walking to the store, I ran into an unruly teenager.
At about what time did you run into this teenager?
I would have to say it was around 10 o'clock.
And what time does the shop hall close?
Promptly at 10 o'clock.
What did you do when you saw Mr. Brooks?
Well, when I saw Mr. Brooks, I asked him politely to leave the store.
And how did Mr. Brooks respond?
Well, he said the cashier knew that he was back here and that I had no business telling him what to do.
Then what did you do?
Well, I told him that I was just doing my job and that he had no reason to talk to me like that and that he should go to the checkout.
And did Mr. Brooks go to the checkout?
No, he didn't. In fact, he told me to mind my own business and just walked off.
Then what did you do?
Well, I finished my rounds to see if anyone else was in the store.
And then?
Well, I came back to make sure Mr. Brooks had left, and he hadn't.
So then what did you do?
Well, I asked him once again just to go to the checkout.
And did he?
No, he didn't. He walked around and finally grabbed some deodorant and then went to the line and check out eventually.
What happened next?
Well, when he got to the line, I said, well, can you please leave or I will have you arrested?
And then what did Mr. Brooks do?
Well, he screamed at me. He said, arrested for what?
And then what happened?
Well, I took out my handcuffs and proceeded to try to arrest him.
So Mr. Brooks didn't try and call the police?
Well, he tried to call the police after I took out my handcuffs.
Officer Lawrence, did you know that 911 calls are recorded?
Yes, that's standard procedure.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
May.
I'm showing you what has been marked as Exhibit 3. Could you identify what it is?
This is an official transcript of a 911 emergency telephone call.
Your Honor, I apologize. I've forgotten if this has already been admitted.
I don't think it has it?
Then I move for the admission of Exhibit number 3. Its authenticity has been stipulated.
Your Honor, it has been admitted already.
I'm sorry. Could you please tell the court what time the call started?
The call started at 10:06,
And what time did the call end?
10 minutes after 10 o'clock.
And what happened after you began to arrest Mr. Brooks?
Well, he started flailing and resisting my arrest.
And what did you do?
Well, according to police procedure, I tried to make an arrest because as an officer, I'm obligated under law to make the arrest when I have probable cause.
And what does police procedure tell you to do when making an arrest?
Well, it tells me to place them against the nearest stable object and so that they don't injure themselves, and then try to, again, place the handcuffs.
And what was the nearest stable object?
It was the conveyor belt.
What happened next?
Well, when I tried to place the handcuffs on her and I got him against the conveyor belt, he was thrashing and he sprung up suddenly and we both fell back into a glass case.
Was Mr. Brooks making a lot of noise while you were arresting him?
Yes, he was. The whole time he was yelling and screaming, saying, "Take your hands off me! Take your hands off me!"
And did this cause anything to happen?
Yes, his ruckus caused several employees to come to the front of the store to see what all the noise was about.
Did you recognize any of the employees?
Well, yes, the manager, Mr. Alex Camp, showed up, and I think he called the police also.
What happened next?
Well, after we fell into the glass case, I didn't let go, and I finally managed, with a little luck, to get the handcuffs on the thrashing Mr. Brooks.
Then what happened?
Well, my fellow officers arrived, and they took Mr. Brooks down to the station for processing.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Roos. Mr. Forsythe, you may cross-examine.
Lawrence, you normally sit in the video surveillance room from 7 to 9:30 during your shifts, correct?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness for those marked as exhibit number 7? Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do. It is excerpts from the Shopall Security Handbook from 2005 and 2006.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of the original?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Your Honor, the plaintiff moves to enter exhibit number 7 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
It is admitted.
Thank you. And we also move to publish the jury with a copy of...
You may do so.
Thank you. Are you aware that Article 2, Section 3 of the Shopall Superstore Security Guard Handbook says all Shopall customers must be welcomed by friendly security guards?
Yes, I am.
You were the only guard on duty that night, correct?
Correct.
Now, how is it possible for you to welcome every customer in a friendly fashion if you sit in the video surveillance room for 2.5 hours for your shift?
Well, I have to make sure that they're not shoplifting.
But please answer my question, how do you welcome them in a friendly way if you're not there for 2.5 hours?
Objection relevance.
It's relevant. The witness will answer the question. The objection's overruled.
Can you repeat the question, please?
How is it possible for you to welcome every customer in a friendly fashion if you are sitting in the video surveillance room for 2.5 hours of your shift every night?
I can't be in two places at once.
So you'd rather violate your store's policy?
No, I'd rather make sure people aren't stealing our items.
Okay, are you aware that the surveillance system was not working on October 26, 2006?
I am.
Please. Okay, thank you. On the night in question, you drove directly to work at Shop Hall from your police shift, correct?
Yes, I did.
Wouldn't such a long day make you tired and hungry and possibly irritable?
Not really. I love my job.
Okay. You first encountered Brooks in the aisleway of Shop Hall at 10 p.m., which is closing time, correct?
Correct.
Upon encountering him, you asked him to head to checkout, right?
Yes, I did.
You left Brooks in the aisleway to finish your sweep of the store after the initial encounter, right?
Yes, I did.
Are you aware that Article 7, Section 5 of the Shop Hall Security Guard Handbook says you must make sure customers are out of the aisle by closing?
Well, I didn't know he was going to disobey my orders.
Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
So at this point, you were in direct violation of the rules which you were so set on enforcing?
Well, I didn't know he
But
was
were
going
you
to
a
disobey
Marine?
my orders.
In the checkout line, when you demanded Brooks leave the store, he called 911, correct?
Correct.
And while he was making this call, you attempted to physically escort him from the store?
I attempted to place my handcuffs
Did you
on him.
attempt to physically escort him, sir?
I attempted to place handcuffs on him.
So you interrupted an emergency phone call being made?
Yes, I did.
And how many employees did you earlier say came up to the front of the store?
Several.
Are you aware that Alex Camp was the only one that came up?
No, I am not. I was busy trying to apprehend a suspect.
Now, you said with a bit of luck you got the handcuffs on Brooks.
Yes.
Do you leave your police skills to luck?
No, I don't, but she was struggling and thrashing, and I needed a little bit of luck to get her down.
Isn't it true that the cashier pleaded with you to stop detaining Brooks?
I'm not sure. I was busy detaining a suspect.
May I refresh the witness? Never mind. Is it true that you have a disciplinary file with the police department?
It's a personnel file, not exactly disciplinary.
It's a file of disciplinary actions taken for you, though, correct?
It also states multiple awards.
But it does contain disciplinary actions, correct?
Yes, my personnel file does.
Are you aware that you received a warning for one of these complaints?
Yes, I am.
So if you have mistreated individuals in the past, is it completely possible for you to have done so again?
Well, she's not exactly
Is
a
it possible,
pickpocketing
ma'am?
mugger.
Or, sir, excuse me. I'm very sorry.
Excuse me?
Is it possible? Just yes or no, please.
Maybe.
Okay.
Anything's possible.
Now, we've established that Article 2, Section 3 of the Shop Hall Superstore Security Guard Handbook says all Shop Hall customers will be welcomed by friendly security guards. It also says customers are to be treated with respect by security guards, correct?
Yes, they are.
And Article 2, Section 6 of this handbook says all Shop Hall customers are to be treated fairly by security guards.
That is correct.
Do you consider trying to forcibly apprehend and arrest someone who only wanted to buy a stick of deodorant friendly, fair, or respectful, sir?
Well,
Yes or no,
how long
please?
does it take to buy deodorant?
Sir, do you consider trying to forcibly apprehend someone who only wanted to buy a stick of deodorant friendly, fair, or respectful?
As an officer, I just needed to complete the arrest because she was trespassing and then being disorderly.
Could you please instruct the witness to answer yes or no to my question?
Well, it's not a yes or no question, counsel. That's sort of like, when did you stop beating your wife? The witness really can't answer the question without explaining the answer, and I believe that he has appropriately answered, so we'll continue.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Rush?
Officer Lawrence, who were the complaints from in your personnel file?
Well, one was from a man who was beating his wife, and another was from a pickpocketing mugger.
And did you have probable cause for arresting Mr. Brooks?
Yes, I did. I had asked her to leave numerous times, and therefore she was trespassing by remaining on the premises.
Did you have any other reasons?
Well, yes, she started yelling at me, which is very disruptive to the other people that might have been in the store.
So what would that fall under as a justification?
That would fall under disorderly conduct.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Forsythe?
Excuse me?
Anything further?
No, thank you. No, thank you, Your Honor.
You may step down. That's my call. Next witness.
The defense calls Alex Camp to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to abide by all the rules of the 72nd District Mock Court Trial?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Alex Camp, C-A-M-P.
Miss Camp, where do you work?
I am the assistant manager at the shop hall.
Does shop hall have any security personnel?
It does. Shannon Lawrence.
Tell me about Officer Lawrence.
Well, when he came and interviewed about a year ago, he had outstanding recommendations from the chief of police of the Clearwater Police Department, and also had an excellent record from Superior State University. And so I had interviewed 8 other people at the time, and he was by far the most outstanding applicant, so I hired him on the spot.
Did you ever give Officer Lawrence any expressive instructions?
I did, as I had written the shop hall handbook, security guard handbook, so I told him to make sure that there were no one in the aisles after closing time, which is 10 p.m., since we've had a problem with teenage shoplifters in the past.
Were you working at shop hall the night on October 26, 2006?
I was.
And did anything out of the ordinary happen?
Well, I was in my office attending to administrative issues when it was a few minutes past 10 p.m., I remember, because I checked my watch, and there was a very loud noise coming from the front of the store, and the store is usually quiet at that time.
What happened when you got to the front of the store?
I saw a young teenager, which I later found out to be Evan Brooks, was yelling at Shannon Lawrence and saying, "Get your hands off me, you don't know what I'm capable of."
What happened next?
Well, I asked Dana Duresha what had happened, and she said that she had heard.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay. Witness is testifying to an out-of-court statement.
I'm sorry, say again?
Hearsay, Your Honor. The witness is testifying to an out-of-court statement made to her.
It's an out-of-court statement alleged to have been made by the defendant.
Wasn't it by Dana Dureka? Was your question for Dana Dureka?
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood the question.
She was telling the court what Dana Drescher had told her.
Okay, then the objection is sustained.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So did you ever call the police?
I did call the police.
And what did they come?
They did.
And what happened when they came?
Well, they arrested Mr. Brooks.
Your Honor, may I post the witness to show her Exhibit 7?
Okay.
These are the excerpts from the Shop Hall Superstore 2005-2006 Security Guard Handbook. Could you please read what is under the store closing policies?
Sure. Article 7, Section 4. Security guards must not allow any customers into the store past closing time. Article 7, Section 5. Security guards must make sure all customers are out of the aisles when the store is closed. Article 7, Section 6. At closing, all customers must be in line at the register or leaving the store.
Now, was Lawrence or was Lawrence not doing his job?
He was absolutely doing his job.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Gilbert?
Good afternoon. You interviewed Lawrence yourself, correct?
That's correct.
And that was about a year ago
Yes.
when Lawrence applied for the job. And Lawrence had been employed by the Clearwater Police Department for 4 years at that time, correct?
Yep.
Did you get this information from Lawrence?
Yes.
Are you aware that Lawrence has been working at the Clearwater Police Department for 6 years? Which would have made his...
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevance.
Or is it irrelevant?
Well, she's just complaining about how he was working for 6 years instead of 4.
I think that she was about to do that, but you may proceed, and then if it's a problem, I will say so.
Would you like the question repeated?
Yes, please.
Okay. Are you aware that Lawrence had been working at the Clearwater Police Department for 6 years currently?
Not specifically.
So you didn't realize that when Lawrence applied for the job a year ago, that Lawrence said that he had been working for 4 years, really he had been working for 5?
No.
So you didn't catch that the employee you were hiring lied to you?
Well, he had excellent recommendations from the chief of
So
police.
Lawrence is a valuable asset to your store, correct?
Absolutely.
And of course you would want to keep this wonderful employee, wouldn't you?
I value all of our employees.
So would you do anything to keep Lawrence in your store?
No.
You personally trained Lawrence, didn't you?
I did.
And Lawrence stays in the surveillance room for the first part of his shift, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Monitoring the tapes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then sweeps the aisle near closing, correct?
Right.
You told him that if anyone was in the aisle at closing, he was to tell them immediately to head to checkout, correct?
Yes.
They could still purchase their items as long as they were in the lane at closing?
Yes.
You trust Lawrence with the safety of your store, correct?
I do.
And this is because he was highly trained and recommended by the Clearwater Police Department?
Yes.
Evan Brooks is a customer, correct?
Right.
And your customers are your business.
Yes.
Now, on the night of October 26th, you were working at Shopall, correct?
That's correct.
You spend most of your time in the office, right?
Yeah.
Loud noises, including screams from the front of the store, caught your attention and brought you from the back on the night of October 26th, correct?
That's true.
Did you know what was going on?
No. That's why I came up.
Did you know who was screaming or who was making the noises?
No.
So it could have been anyone making the noises, not necessarily Brooks. It could have been Lawrence.
Yes, but I later saw Brooks making the noise.
But before you got out there, it could have been anyone. You just heard the noises.
Yeah.
You didn't see how this conflict started, did you?
No, I did not.
Isn't it true that Lawrence pushed Brooks into a conveyor belt?
He was just trying to detain her.
Tried to hold him steady.
Yes, sorry, excuse me.
Did it work successfully, or was Brooks able to get free?
Brooks was struggling, and he was able to push Lawrence off of him.
So, Mr. Ecca, are you testifying today that the
Miss Camp.
Oh, Miss Camp, I'm so sorry. Miss Camp, you are testifying today that the highly trained police officer you hired to protect your store could not successfully restrain a 130-pound 5'6" teenager?
They were both struggling, but he was
he
able
couldn't
to
restrain
maintain.
it, could
He was able to maintain his
After
hold
several
on her.
tries?
Brooks must be pretty strong.
5'6" teenager is, you know, giving your security guard you trust with your store a run for your money. Doesn't that worry you?
No, he always gives 100%, 110% on the job.
Shopall closes at 10, correct?
Correct.
But Lawrence works until 11?
Yeah.
So, but Shopall's doors lock a few moments before 10, isn't that right? So no new customers come in?
True.
So Lawrence sweeps the aisles for an hour after the doors have already been locked and nobody's been able to come in looking for people?
He attends to other issues as well.
After everything that happened on October 26, you wrote up Dana Durecka, correct?
That's true.
You wrote her up for violating store policy, correct?
Correct.
Which store policy do you believe Ms. Durecka violated?
Allowing a customer to go back into the aisles too close to closing time.
Were you there with Ms. Durecka when she let Brooks back into the aisles?
No, I was in my office.
So you don't know if it was indeed before or after closing time when she let him back, do you?
No.
Then how do you know she violated this policy?
She had told me.
She straight up told you
She told me
violated.
that's what happened.
Are you aware that Dana Dureka is currently trying to get promoted to the assistant manager position?
Yes.
The same position you currently hold?
Yeah.
Do you realize that the reprimand you gave her prevents her from getting the position she's been seeking, thus keeping your job safe?
I think I would have to leave my job before she would take it over me.
Are you aware that Article 7, Section 5 of the Cashier Handbook says that all security guards are to make sure that the customers are out of the store, or out of the aisles when the store is closed?
Sorry, which handbook was this? Do I have it in front of me?
Article 7, Section 5 in the security guard?
Yeah.
And do you recall that Lawrence encountered Brooks in the aisles at 10 p.m.?
Mm-hmm.
And then Lawrence left Brooks to continue his sweeping of the aisles?
Yes.
So Lawrence left a customer in the aisles at closing?
I believe he assumed that Mr. Brooks would leave as instructed and went to go make sure there was no one else in the other aisles.
But he didn't make sure that he left before proceeding to other customers, did he?
He did.
A simple yes or no would suffice, please.
I think he did his job.
You don't think this is a violation of Article 7, Section 5?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No, we direct, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Defense may call its last witness, Mr. Pittman.
The defense calls Devin Rodriguez to the stand.
Raise your right hand. You swear to abide by all the rules of the 72nd District Court mock trial.
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Devin Rodriguez, Rodriguze.
What is your form of employment, Mr. Rodriguez?
I'm the chief of police.
And for how long have you served as chief of police?
6 years.
Before you were police chief, what did you do for the Clearwater Police Department?
I was doing patrol work for 10 years.
And what is your educational background?
I studied at Superior City University, and that's where I graduated from.
In your first few years as chief, were there any peculiar incidents that occurred?
Yes, there was one.
And what happened?
The mayor came to me and told me that there were claims of police brutality.
And what did you do as a result of the increase in police brutality?
We decided to create some in-service courses to better educate our officers.
What are the names of these courses?
Civil and criminal liability, authority and jurisdiction, use of force, conflict resolution for police officers, and evidence, arrest, and legal update.
And are all of these courses mandatory?
No.
Which one is not mandatory?
The conflict resolution for police officers.
Could you please describe for the court the 3 mandatory courses?
Well, authority and jurisdiction deals with probable cause, the right to arrest with or without warrant, the right to search with or without warrant. Use of force is about different forces to be used and when deadly force is appropriate and when it's not. And then conflict resolution for police officers is everyone that a police officer may come in contact to, including citizens. And evidence, arrest, and legal update is about any updates that may happen in the law.
And what is your participation in these courses?
I taught them and created them.
Do you know the defendant, Officer Shannon Lawrence?
Yes, I personally recruited him.
And how did Officer Lawrence perform on the courses previously mentioned?
He was top of his class in 2 and did very well in all 4.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Mr. Rodriguez, I'm showing you what has been previously admitted into evidence as Exhibit 5. Would you please read for us the awards and commendations?
In '01, he got Outstanding Relationship with Community. In '03, he got Recognition for Investigative Techniques. In '04, he got Recognition for Work with Community Educational Initiatives.
Are you familiar with the night of October 26, 2006?
I wasn't there, but I heard about it.
How did Shannon Lawrence handle the situation at hand?
He handled it according to our protocols.
And how did the other officers that later arrived on the scene handle the situation?
I also support them, too. They also were within their jurisdiction.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Mantle, you may proceed with cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. You were promoted to chief 6 years ago, correct?
Yes.
Only 2 years after you became chief, there was an increase in police brutality, wasn't there?
Well, the mayor came to me and we fixed the problem.
But there was a rise, wasn't there?
Yes.
Thank you. And isn't it true that during this rise in police brutality, Shannon Lawrence was on your force?
Well, yes, he would have been.
At this, may I approach the witness what has previously been entered into evidence as Exhibit 5?
I already have it.
Oh, you have it, okay. May I please furnish the jury with a copy because I don't believe they ever received one.
All right, they may.
Thank you. Isn't it true that in February of 2001, Officer Lawrence was accused of police brutality?
Yes, but no disciplinary action was taken.
Okay, thank you. And isn't it also true that Officer Lawrence was again accused of police brutality in May of 2002 and had to be issued a warning for his outlandish behavior?
Yeah, he got a warning.
Isn't it true that you and Officer Lawrence attended the same university?
At separate times.
Mm-hmm. You also recruited Lawrence yourself, correct?
Yes.
So if Lawrence messed up, it would reflect badly on you, wouldn't it, Mr. Rodriguez?
No.
There were classes offered through the police station, were there not?
Yes.
And Officer Lawrence took those classes, didn't he?
Yeah, the standard police academies.
Mm-hmm. Chief Rodriguez, if Officer Lawrence graduated from a great university and so highly qualified that you hired him yourself, why did he need extra training?
Well, we thought that all officers should take these classes, regardless of the college or university they went to, because it would further help them.
Do you believe that Officer Lawrence acted according to sound police protocol?
Yes.
And do you believe that the other officers that responded to the scene acted according to sound police protocol?
Yes.
Tell me, Chief Rodriguez, were you present at Shopall on October 26, 2006 when this whole altercation took place?
No.
So you didn't see with your own two eyes exactly what occurred there, did you?
No, but I
Thank
trust
you.
my
No
officers.
further questions.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Rodriguez, in the complaints brought against Mr. Rodriguez, were any charges carried out?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Cross.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
You may step down. Thank you. At this time, we would go to closing arguments. Ms. Mantle, is do you wish to reserve any time for rebuttal?
That won't be necessary, no, thank you.
All right, you may proceed. You will have 5 minutes for your closing argument.
Good afternoon. May it please the court, Your Honor, and ladies or gentlemen of the jury, sorry. First of all, I'd like to thank you for sitting on in this trial. I know there's a lot of information given to you and there's a lot to think about. I'm going to make it a little bit easier and sum up what you heard today. Today you've heard a story, a fairy tale become reality. Today you've heard a story of a young man who can be compared to Little Red Riding Hood, the little girl who found an imposter at her grandmother's house. Today you've heard the story of a young man who sees a security guard dressed as a police officer. And a police officer is someone you're supposed to be able to count on for protection and comfort in your times of need. But I'm sorry to say, ladies and gentlemen, that the security guard at Shopall and the police officer working for the Clearwater Police Department was an imposter. Shannon Lawrence was a wolf in sheep's clothing. The first element we had to prove today was battery. A person is liable for battery when he or she intentionally harms another without legal justification. Evan Brooks was slammed into a conveyor belt and into a glass case by Officer Shannon Lawrence. The question you have to ask yourself is, was this act completed with or without legal justification? This may have been the reasonable force necessary to subdue Evan Brooks if, and I repeat, if Evan Brooks had been lashing out or trying to hurt Officer Lawrence in any way. But Evan Brooks was on the phone with 911 trying to get help when Officer Lawrence felt it necessary to terrorize and abuse Evan Brooks. And just the fact that the police had to be called on a police officer takes us back to the imposter in the police uniform. There cannot be legal justification in grabbing a youth who is on the phone with the authorities trying to do you no physical harm and hurting him and abusing him. The second element we had to prove today was false arrest. A person is liable for false arrest when he or she detains or restrains a person without consent or legal justification. Exhibit number 7 of the security guard handbook states that at closing time, all customers must be in the checkout or leaving the store. Evan Brooks, after being told by Officer Lawrence to proceed to checkout, did as he was told. He grabbed his last item and went to checkout. But just because he grabbed that last little item, a single stick of deodorant, Officer Lawrence was mad. He felt that his authority had been tried, and he was ready to bare his teeth and show this insolent youth who was boss. Officer Lawrence followed Brooks and to continue to harass him, only this time he wanted him to leave the store. When Evan Brooks didn't leave immediately, Lawrence got angry and decided not only to abuse Evan Brooks, but to arrest him for trespassing. Evan Brooks was paying for his items where he was supposed to be, and in no way breaking the law. Throughout this whole altercation between Evan Brooks and Officer Lawrence, Evan Brooks was only trying to defend himself against an enraged wolf-like madman. But just because this madman happened to be employed as a police officer with the Clearwater Police Department, my client was in the wrong? I don't think so. It seems that the Clearwater Police Department believes it is okay for someone to be abused and beat up, as long as the abuse is coming from a police officer. Because Officer Lawrence received no reprimand, and Evan Brooks, the innocent in this whole ordeal, was arrested. The third and final element we as the plaintiff's attorney had to prove was that there was an intentional infliction of emotional distress. Officer Lawrence that night went beyond the bounds of decency and caused long-term damage to our client, Evan Brooks. Whitney Taylor, a doctor and a psychologist, told us that before this incident occurred, the only treatment that Evan required was an ear to talk to and a friend for companionship. But after this incident at Shopall, Dr. Taylor told us that this 19-year-old boy had to be given antidepressant medications and a sleep aid. Officer Lawrence abused his power. He yelled in Evan Brooks' face and threw him around. The other officers poked fun and teased Evan Brooks. If this extreme and outrageous behavior is not intentional infliction of emotional distress, Mr. Gentlemen, I don't know what is. Officer Lawrence was accused twice in the past for police brutality and was given warning for his outrageous behavior. He was also given commendation for his outstanding relationship with the community. This is a sick and twisted system if awards are given for corruption and abuse. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Evan Brooks was misled. We were all misled in believing that when you need help, all you have to do is dial 3 simple numbers on the telephone. When Evan Brooks picked up the phone and dialed 911, he got rewarded not with safety, as we were all led to believe you would receive with that phone call, but with humiliation and with abuse by angry police officers. Now Evan Brooks has to live for the rest of his life with the question in his mind: who is going to help me when I need help? Who is going to be there for me when I am in danger? You, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are Evan Brooks' only salvation, his only hope at seeing justice done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roosh?
Your Honor, may I use the podium closest to the jury?
You may.
Your Honor, gentlemen of the jury, Officer Shannon Lawrence is a family man. He not only works full-time as a police officer, but he also works part-time as a nighttime security guard at the local shop hall. After working all day at the police station, he then gets to enjoy the nightly pleasure of eating dinner with his family and spending some quality time with them. He then has to change clothes and head off to his second job to further support his family. But on the night of October 26, 2006, Officer Lawrence didn't get to go home and eat with his family. No, instead, he decided to work an extra shift at the police station because they were short-staffed. He then went immediately to his second job, forcing him to give up his precious time with his wife and kids. And what did he get for working extra hours? A teen delinquent who won't do as he's told and just causes trouble for no reason. Yes, Mr. Brooks could have avoided this whole mess if he had just done as he was instructed. It doesn't matter that Officer Lawrence is a police officer. He totally ignored a higher authority figure that was telling him to leave. Let me remind you that the plaintiff must prove by preponderance of the evidence the liability of my clients, Officer Lawrence and the Clearwater Police Department. But the facts are on my client's side. Today you will be informed of the terms of trespassing in Clearwater. These terms are that a person commits trespassing if such person remains in any public or private building and refuses to leave upon the reasonable demand of the lawful occupant or the person lawfully in charge of the building. Mr. Brooks was asked repeatedly to at first go to the register. Instead, he continued to shop, and then was asked to leave the premises of the shop hall, which he didn't. Instead, Mr. Brooks stayed to argue with Officer Lawrence. You will be informed of the terms of disorderly conduct in Clearwater, which state that a person commits disorderly conduct if such person acts with intent to provoke a breach of peace or acts in a way that results in a breach of peace, such as shouting or making a noise either outside or inside of a building during the nighttime to the annoyance or disturbance of a considerable number of persons. Officer Lawrence began to arrest Mr. Brooks for trespassing, but he began to resist him and to make lots of noise, which caused several employees to stop what they were doing and come to the front of the store, thereby disturbing their work. And you will also be informed of the terms of false arrest in Clearwater, which are, a person is liable for false arrest when he or she detains or restrains another without consent and without legal justification. Gentlemen, Officer Lawrence had perfect justification for arresting Mr. Brooks. He was still in the shop hall long after he was initially asked to leave. This fact has been proved by the 911 call transcript, also known as Exhibit 3, which states that the call began at 10:06 p.m. and didn't end until after 10:10, a full 10 minutes after the shop hall's closing time of 10 o'clock. The conversation that took place between him and Officer Lawrence, as stated in the testimonies of Mr. Brooks, Officer Lawrence, and Dana Derecha, could not possibly have been 6 or more minutes long. And as Officer Lawrence began fulfilling his duty as a police officer to arrest Mr. Brooks for trespassing, Brooks began to resisting and to shout and scream loudly. All the noise he was making caused several employees to come to the front of the store, which was disturbing their work. And this disruption only added the reason of disorderly conduct to his arrest. Gentlemen of the jury, Officer Shannon Lawrence is a family man who was just trying to earn a little extra cash to support his wife and 2 kids by taking on a second job. He didn't ask for any of this to have happened. Mr. Evan Brooks, in a sense, caused his own injuries and mental anguish. Most people, when being arrested, don't start thrashing about, regardless of how wrong they think the cop is. But Mr. Brooks never liked hearing things he didn't agree with from authority figures. So who will you decide in favor of today? An officer of the law just doing his job, or a problem child who doesn't respond well when authority figures tell him something he doesn't want to hear? I trust that you will help me uncover the real big bad wolf, Mr. Evan Brooks. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. The sides are now completed, and we will take a short break to discuss our comments that we will be making to you, and come back out here very shortly.
All rise.
Please be seated.
All rise. Very well.
Thank you. Please be seated. Well, one of the good parts about being a presiding judge is that you get a chance to talk first. And I'm going to say here what I said when I went in the room with the other judges. My first comment was, wow. Your performances were just blew me away. It is very clear that all of you worked very, very hard. All of you, when I say this, I'm talking witnesses included. I mean, the witnesses were extremely believable, I thought. Did an excellent job without being argumentative, and The attorneys did likewise. I have 3 comments, and I don't mean to pick on anybody in particular. It's just that these are the comments that I came up with that I think needed to be maybe fleshed out and might be helpful in the future going on from here. But Ms. Gilbert, the one thing I thought could have been handled better in the direct examination of the plaintiff in the case was to get more out of the plaintiff in terms of how the injuries affected her excuse me, him, how the derision by the other officers made them feel, or made him feel, how the pain hurt. I mean, physically describe what you had to go through and how long you had to go through, how long did it persist, and how has that negatively affected your life. I think those are things that you need to get into. Mr. Tibble, in your opening statement, the content of your opening statement was extremely good. The problem was you read it. You need to get away from that. And my suggestion to you is that you make an outline of your closing and utilize your outline, because you probably have got it memorized by now anyway. What happens is that when you lose eye contact with those people that are going to be making the decision there, you lose them completely in the argument. And no matter how good your argument is, or your statement or your comments or whatever, no matter how good the content is, when you deliver it by reading, it takes away from it. But otherwise, I said it was wonderful. Ms. Bantle, in your closing, the delivery was excellent, the content was excellent, the creativity and imagination was excellent. The problem was you forgot why you were here. Why were you here? You want to get some money, M-O-N-E-Y, money for your client.
Spell that again.
Very good. But anyhow, that's what you want to do. I mean, and you want to indicate a sum of money and why. Because that's what a plaintiff's case is. The bottom line in a plaintiff's case isn't justification, isn't anything other than dollars, greenbacks, however you want to refer to it. You need to address that issue and explain why. But other than that, I mean, I wouldn't change a bit about the rest of it other than getting to that one issue. But I want to say again, wow.
Thank you.
Good job. Great job. Joe?
Thank you. I really have enjoyed the whole day and have really enjoyed being exposed to you talented young people. Without exception, good going. Stop reading. You know this stuff inside out. Stop reading. You're darn good at it. The practice of saying to the judge thank you when he rules is really, really a neat practice. And I say, go for it, guys. The judge rules, whether it's for or against you. One of you kept saying, thank you, Your Honor. Boy, that counts. Respect to the opposing party, whether the opposing party is saying something that you really don't want to hear, but respect, thank you. It goes a long way toward the independent person judging you. Great job. By the way, scores are so close. So close. Good going.
I thought it was, everything was very well done as well. Everything from the mechanics of introducing exhibits was very smoothly done. Didn't distract from the story. If you can't remember exactly that you have to get the document authenticated first, or you have to first show it to opposing counsel, and when you have to move to admit, if you don't have those mechanics down, it'll take away from the presentation you're trying to make. It gets in the way and breaks concentration. So the fact that you had that down was very helpful. I too thought that the openings and closings were excellent, and the substance of all of them was very, very good, and summarized evidence in a way that was very helpful. It was best when you, as the other people, as Judge Nicholson and Banks have said, it was best when it wasn't read. To the extent that you are not reading it or even reciting it from memory, but looking at the jury or the judge and telling them something, that's when the jurors and judges lock on and emotionally respond to it and therefore become persuaded. So it's not just an intellectual exercise, it's because if you just listen to what you're saying, reading what you're saying, you may be persuaded or not based on the logic of what's written. But when someone looks you in the eye and tells it to you, then you become persuaded in another dimension. And the more you looked at us and said it from your heart, the more persuaded we're going to be. And the best of you in your closings and openings did that. All it takes is practice. And the more you do it, the easier it'll become. So don't give up. Keep doing that. And don't be discouraged at all. Just keep doing it. Because you do know the facts. You just need to practice saying them aloud. I also thought that the witnesses were very believable. You assumed those identities and weren't just reading a script, weren't just doing an assignment, and you challenged the questioners. You didn't just give in, but you didn't make things up either. So that was very helpful and really brought it to life. On cross-examination, you had to think on your feet. If you just keep asking the questions and don't listen to the answers, you're going to get killed. You aren't going to make your points, but you have to. So I think you did pretty well. You have to keep practicing that. One example was, I can't remember who was cross-examining Mr. Lawrence. He asked him whether he knew what was going on. Well, was he greeting people when he was back in the security room? Well, no, he wasn't. He was trying to do his job. And then I think Ms. Gilbert asked, well, was the security system working that night? And he said no. And then you might have thought, but you didn't. You were going on to the next question. You might have thought, well, then what were you doing back there for 2.5 hours if the cameras weren't working? Were you just snoozing because you had worked an extra shift, and were you a little bit groggy when you came out and manhandled my client? I mean, so listen to what they're saying and then go on. But I'm not saying that you didn't. Otherwise, you did. You were very persistent, and you went after them until you tried to make your point. You weren't just reading questions on a sheet of paper, and that goes for everybody. I thought, on the whole, it was outstanding. It was a pleasure to watch.
Mr. Cook.
I would just concur with everything my colleagues have said. Out of the 3 matches today, I have to say by far this group here outshined everything I've seen. It was obvious that you guys knew the facts inside and out. You did not sit there and just read them from the paper. It was a real encounter. The witnesses were outstanding, did a great job. It was obvious you folks have practiced, and it really shows when you get to this point in the competition. So thank you. Enjoyed it thoroughly.
Thank you.
It was evident to me that, I want to say this too, that the teams were well coached. So I just, again, want to say that what a wonderful experience it was. I would also like to thank Lieutenant Timothy Donnellan from the Sheriff's Department for being our bailiff today. With that, I think we're concluded, and we'll see you at the awards ceremony. Thank you. Outstanding.